are back with another episode of the Watch and Cut channel. Welcome back, everyone. If you're a first-time viewer, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave comments down below, as this is an open forum for all of us to learn, including myself, from you guys just as much. So what do we got today? Today we have an Avian Knives Atlas. This is a really cool knife, actually, that Dirk Werning, my good buddy from the EDC Hour, check out our podcast if you guys haven't already. And also with the podcast, guys, go subscribe to it. We've kind of kicked it off. I think we're on episode 30 coming up. So continuing right along, with that being said, we actually had an episode recently where we had Avian Knives on. As a matter of fact, one of the two guys, because this is a two-man operation. One person to mention is Rit. That was the first gentleman that I met. This is actually his own personal prototype made from last year in May, as I read on the certificate. And this is the Atlas. The Atlas basically is a designed EDC knife with two purposes in mind. It's supposed to be extremely lightweight, with durability in mind, of course, but it's also got a really unique toolless takedown feature. So in other words, you don't need any tools to take this knife apart. So we'll get into that. We'll check it out. I have not taken this knife apart. I'm going to do it one shot, one time with you guys live. And so you guys can kind of see how easy and how difficult it might be. So good or bad, however this goes, we're going to leave it live. So this thing's really slick looking. I mean, you're looking at the lines. It's very sleek. It's almost got a futuristic looking handle with a nice, slightly belly curved blade. So two things stood out to me when I first unboxed this knife. First thing is the handle. Now, as much as I'd like to really boast about it, and I kind of will when it comes to the mechanics of this thing, the handle design is nice. It kind of reminds me of a Riot Future, like a Tashi design, or perhaps something a little bit Isham-ish. But a lot more subtle, which is nice. The thing is, with the way that everything is cut and constructed, it almost kind of made me feel a little bit like a Best Tech looking construction type finish handle, or perhaps something from like overseas production, which there is nothing wrong with that. I think a good like 35% of my knife box is Chinese-made knives, from Wies to Riot and all kinds of cool stuff. And I love those knives. But this knife kind of wasn't supposed to give you that appearance. As a matter of fact, this is not made in that part of the world. It's made overseas partially, and it's partially made in America. So from what I understand, and Avian Knives, or anybody who knows different, please comment down below. I do believe that all the materials really needed, like some of the high-end materials, like the Magna Cut from the blade, for example, is not available in Thailand or in certain places. So some of these materials, I believe, are sourced from America, and everything is either sourced from there or Thailand, and everything is machine cut out in Thailand. Now, after that, those raw parts, unfinished parts, are sent over to Seth Taylor. And if you guys aren't familiar with Seth Taylor, he's actually pretty well-known custom knife maker, more in the higher-end collector realm of things. One of the guys that introduced me to him is good old Jim Skeleton. Let's put a clip in here. He shows his.
It is so reflective. So you've got a nice top swedge on here, very prominent flat. The bevels are beautifully done. I mean, this is just amazing.
I mean, that thing is freaking awesome. Jim had a couple of them that he showed, and they were really quite impressive. So I've known about Seth Taylor for years through various sources and such. I've never actually handled one, but you can just look at these things and just see the tolerances. So he's actually the one that takes all the raw parts, does any kind of modifying needed to make sure these are well fitted together, and he tunes them to make sure that they're running optimal. And then you get this completely hollow ground, hand ground blade. This is awesome, guys. So that was the other thing that stood out. Yeah, it was a bit Asian market looking on the handle side, but it is super custom looking on the blade. Really, really nice. Hand rub satin finish. Nice. I guess it's not a Spidey hole. It's a avian hole.
That's what she said. Or he said.
That's what she said. Yeah, so you have two forms of deployment. You got the standard kind of like little Spidey flick deal. You can thumb roll it. As far as thumb flick it, I think it's a little bit difficult because I have kind of a wide area going on here. And you got the flipper deployment, which is great. The action is, man, my Spectre, my Norseman, yeah, they don't do quite this crazy of an action. This is kind of wild, guys. Yeah, wow. So it does tend to, yeah, nail me right here. Typically with flipper tabs, you will get the flipper tab protruding right here. So what I generally do is I'll overcome the detent ramp path right here. And then as the blade starts to rotate down, the flipper can kind of catch my finger. But as you can see, they made the flipper tab almost non-existent, which is really cool. So it's kind of like the Lee Williams kickstop, for example. You have kind of like a higher flipper tab and you flip it open and boom, there's nothing on the bottom because it kind of rolls on top. This literally has no mechanical need, just has a disappearing flipper tab. That's rad. Actually even see the milling right here. It's definitely meant to be held like this. You do kind of have a choil or a little rounded area, which I think is really nice. Gives you a good grip. And you can hold it back here as well. But yeah, overall, looks really nice. The milling is nice, don't get me wrong. The machining, the fit up, it's all really, really, really nice. Especially considering this thing is going to come completely apart in just a few minutes without any tools. Now what's cool is you guys can also check it out. It's nicely centered. And these pivots actually have a locked-in threads. So they are threaded, but Seth actually locks them into place so that basically what happens is the tolerances are locked into place with this knife. So when you put it back together, the blade just kind of self-centers is the idea. In other words, the tolerances never change on the pivot. So kind of cool. Let's talk about the Atlas. And so now the price on this one is $625. You can get these. I don't know if they're doing pre-order. I didn't check the website. I should have probably checked that. But here's the website for reference. If you guys are interested in these, I believe they're still available. And sorry if they're not. It's still a cool knife to look at either way. So let's take a look at how this guy comes apart. Now, I had to kind of have a reference because this knife comes with this nice box, which by the way, won't be the box you guys will get with your knife. This is kind of pre-production, kind of test run box that Rit, the other owner of Avian Knives, let me borrow and check out. So this is the box that he has his. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with Rit, go check him out on Instagram. The guy is an unbelievable custom knife collector. I mean, he just has some unbelievable pieces. Talking about a guy who knows his stuff. Very impressive, beautiful dress pieces. You guys can't do any wrong by going and checking out his Instagram page. So, but anyways, this is his personal knife, and he's the one that handles the operation in Thailand of getting all the pieces milled out and all that good stuff. So, as I kind of wanted to see somebody take it apart before I did it, I watched Jim Skelton's video. It's a great one, by the way, if you guys want to check it out.
I got to tell you, for those of you that like to take your knives apart and do lots of thorough cleaning and all that kind of good stuff, I don't see how this is not the most revolutionary, amazing thing. You don't need to carry tools with you.
So let's take it apart and see how easy this is. So the first thing you're going to take a look at here is going to be this little piece right here. This little clip actually rotates upwards. And then what that does is it rotates an opening for the clip to come out. So then you'll take the clip out. We're going to also take this little deal out as soon as the clip kind of comes through. And I'm just going to kind of keep rotating until I get this thing out. I'm already having more trouble than the other guys. So there you go. You can see kind of the cam lock design. That it's pretty smart, actually. All right, and that's on the clip. It does come apart, but we're going to leave it here because there's no need to lose it. Let's rotate this out. This actually comes completely out. Then you're going to take this back spacer and you're going to rotate this upwards, if I remember right. Oh yeah, from the back portion. So when this all comes out, rotates upwards. I remember seeing that there's some pins here I've got to be careful of. So once you get this up right here, I believe these two guys here slide out on both sides, and you can take it apart completely that way if you'd like. But for the most part, I've seen, and this is why you have the jimping right here, by the way. You're going to pull this down. Or not. Or you're going to pull this guy down. Or you're missing a step. Let me see. All right, so this side's going to come out a little easier. So I kind of see how this works now. This back spacer kind of locks this thing in, which is cool. So we're going to take this out. Oh yeah, I do remember something. I believe the blade should be partially deployed when you're doing this. There we go. Now it comes right apart. There we go. So something quirky about it, right? Like, doesn't that kind of make it, you know, I don't know. Yeah, we'll save that for later. So when you do that, this clip right here will basically allow this to come up. And this is when you usually lose this little back piece pin here, which we have not. And then you can take a look here. There's your bearings. I think I overheard Dirk say these are skiff bearings, which they kind of look like. Is it me or they look gritty as hell? Yeah. I think it would be nice of me to actually kind of clean this out and service it. I think I'll do that for him before I send it back to Dirk, but for now, for time's sakes, I'll just kind of continue along. So what's kind of interesting here, let's lift this up. Here's that little back pin I was talking about. And then you got this little hole right here for the pin to lock through with the back spacer, which is kind of really interesting. You got kind of max pocketing here, lots of relief cut, Really interesting backspacer, and this backspacer does come completely out. And then looking at the pivot, this is cool. This is really well done. You got an internal rotating stop pin right here, right? Got little pockets for your bearings to sit in. Yeah, this is cool. Here's your pivot, which nice. Now we got the other thing that came out right here. So we are going to get this guy completely apart after all. Here's your other bearing. This feels like these are kind of pressed in there or something. Yeah, they don't just kind of come out easily. Here we go. Here's your stop pin. All right. So let's see how many pieces we got here. Ooh, that is yucky. It's a little bit of oil, but it is not pretty. Look at this backspacer. All right, we got them all. And here's that little back pin right here. So in total, we have
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Including this bearing right here. 15 pieces. Pretty cool. Now keep in mind, guys, this is a prototype, so it's probably a lot more rough than what you're going to get. But honestly, it's not rough at all. This is beautiful. That detent is really tight on this one. Yeah, I love that hollow grind. Nice blade shape. Good job on that. Yeah, and all the parts are machined pretty nicely. Like I said, maybe it's just the finish on the scales that just makes it feel a little bit generic. As a matter of fact, something I should also mention, I think me and Dirk, when we were talking about this knife, we were kind of thinking that, you know, with this piece right here, what if you cut out like a little notch here and, you know, keyed them in so that they didn't fall out, they would just slide back. This way you had less parts coming apart. So that was kind of one thing that I mentioned. Too many pieces, you know? And oh man, I'm so sorry to bring this up, Britt, but look at this CRKT from Ken Onion. Now, this knife, the home front, is actually a knife that Ken Onion has made customs of as well. It's not just a production, but this is a home run to me. So this has the same concept, right? It's a toolless takedown knife. The thing is this knife to take apart, I don't need to have it folded in any particular direction or any of that stuff. You've got a rolling piece, and it appears like it's a backspacer, but you just kind of roll this out. And what will happen is this is threaded. So all you do is this. You hear it pop, that means it's all the way out. This lever folds upwards. Boom. 3 pieces, guys. That is it. And you see how fast that came apart. Self-lubricating and pressed in washers. Right? It's not skiff bearings, but very smart if you're going to use it for an outdoors application. Right? And putting this guy back together is literally just doing it in the opposite. And actually, here's what's going on here in case you guys are wondering. So when you rotate this little octagon shape that's in here kind of rotates only halfway. So although they matched when they're lined up, this kind of unlines them up and locks the whole thing into place. It's really clever. This knife is super clever, and that's kind of why I bought it. I'm not really in need of CRKTs in my life, but years and years ago, when this first came out, actually, brand new release. I bought this, and I really have enjoyed using it, kind of beating it up, keeping it around. It's a great knife. As a matter of fact, it just takes no time to kind of lock into place, and boom, now I'm back in business. See what I mean, guys? So that's kind of where I wish they would kind of went with this direction. This is much more intricate, more high end, but in the end, it's more fiddly. It's more parts. It's just harder.
Don't you dare.
You know? So if you're going to be in a place where you're going to need to take your knife apart and clean it, hence kind of in the outdoor settings or whatnot, then what's going to happen is you're going to need a knife that's very quick and easy to service. And is this really the knife that you're going to want to bring with you when you do that? And isn't this also the whole purpose of this knife, is to take it apart and clean it, right? Now in my bedroom or here under the YouTube table, why not, right? I got time to do that. But in the end, it's just, it's a really good idea, and it's almost there. But to me, it just needs a little bit more. Almost there, but not quite for me. And the only reason, like I said, is just the overall complicatedness. Now, is this over complicated? I guess it depends who you're asking, right? Because some people might just find this to be no big deal. But in some cases, you know, some people might be fiddling around with this for half an hour, and they just might get upset and throw the thing. So that's kind of where I'm at. Yes, I'm capable of putting this thing back together. But is everybody able to put this thing back together is the next question. And I think that's something to consider when you're making a toolless knife. Now, there's been other people as well. Another cool one to highlight, I think I'd like to mention, is Snextan. Snextan is a awesome knife designer slash maker. Really comes up really innovative ideas. And the thing with Snex is he did do something in sort of this fashion. He did what was it wasn't a toolless knife. It was a knife that the tool was integrated. I think if I remember, it was the pocket clip or something, or the back spacer, and you take the tool out and then you can take the whole knife apart using the tool that's integrated into the knife. I think that's cool too. So there's all these ideas about these really like fast takedown knives. But in the end, you just got to ask yourself a few questions. Is it overcomplicated? Does it create a problem, or does it solve a problem? So let's see if we can get this guy back together now that I've been talking all this time. And what do we got here? All right, we got the stop pin. We got the pockets for the bearings. We got this. So I think the only part that's not going to be fun is probably... Oh, I see. That's clever. So not both of these guys are the same. One is a clip and one is looped in. I see. So I do remember that the looped in was the locks, or the show side that did have that. So we're going to put that right back in there. That's good that they made it that way, because that would have been kind of a pain to reference otherwise, sliding these little clips on. Next thing we're going to do here, we're going to build the knife up from this side. So let's put in the stop pin. I do believe on the actual knife, the production version, the stop pin does not come out, but it does on this one. So we're going to put it back in. And that is not the stop pin. That is the stop pin. I'm an idiot. Duh. So next I'm going to put the blade on. That. is gonna sit like so. Now we got the stop pin alignment, and then we got this, and I think this is actually now that little back pin that fell out for most people's reviews. So after we got that together, we're gonna take the back spacer. The back spacer's got a pin that's gonna drop in here. And we're gonna take this right here, which make sure your bearing's already orientated. If not, if it kind of wants to fall out, you can always put it in this pocket. But in the end, both pockets are going to have to line up. So I am gonna do this. Now you guys didn't hear it, but there was a little bit of me sliding the butt end of the knife to get that pin to slide all the way down. And as you can see, now I got a nice good lock up here. So before I put the back spacer down, let's lock the pivot back into place. And from what I understand from watching the other videos, I saw Jim said it was kind of a necessity thing to do this. So we'll listen to him. I don't know. I don't like the pressure on the lock. Let's do it this way. Let's do it the unprescribed way. I don't see mechanically why this wouldn't work, but we'll find out. All right. So let's make sure. Wow, that went in really easily.
That's what she said. That's good.
Good tolerances. I was expecting it to, yeah. So another thing that I'd like to highlight too, when I was doing this, and I have a tendency to do this when I'm working on anything at all, is I was putting pressure upwards with my finger just to make sure I got this all the way up so that this pin can slide in firm, and it literally just slid on. I'm kind of impressed. The tolerances are actually really good on this. So now we're down to 2 pieces. We've almost made it. So this pocket clip here, let's make sure we got all our pins in the correct orientation. So we're gonna do that. That's kind of interesting too. There's a little pin here to prevent the pocket clip from spinning. Very clever, since it's only using 1 screw to do that whole thing. I think that's kind of cool. The back spacer does have a bit of spring to it, so there you go. Once you push it, put a little pressure down, we should be almost in the money here. So now what I'm doing is I'm leaving that little gap right here because I do know that I have to put this back in. And the way this goes in, it's almost like working on a 1911 or a Glock. You just, like when you put the frame pins in, you just got to make sure everything lines up. And from what I remember, for this whole ordeal to lock up, this should be rotated upwards. And then let me rotate this. And I'm feeling stuff kind of snapping into place here. And I want this screw to rotate. See if, there we go. So you got to rotate it to a certain position till it goes, and you guys saw me rotate with my thumb. Lock this down. All right. Self-centered. Wow, what an adventure. Honestly, guys, I don't know. When you see this thing, what do you guys think? Do you think this is overcomplicated? Do you think this is just something that perhaps is for just only enthusiasts, you know? I don't know, guys, but for me, I think it's pretty damn cool. But here's the thing. If you're going to do something like this, I'm just letting you guys know. You got to do it easier and better than the next guy. That's just my opinion. And it's not quite there, but it's getting there. So that's kind of my overall gist. As far as what it tries to accomplish, which is be a super lightweight EDC at 2.5 ounces and being a very strong constructed knife, it does that perfectly. But are you going to take this thing apart out in the field? Probably not. And if you're at home and you have a knife like this, you know, is a Torx that big of a deal? Not really. So let's do some size comparisons. Here's a Delica next to it. Here is a William Henry B12. What else we got? Oh yeah, we got the Rotten Design Regrind Benchmade Monolock. So that kind of shows you where it stacks up. It's not a really huge knife of any sorts. Pretty well sized, actually. I was actually thinking it was going to be closer to this one from what I remember. This is another really nice lightweight Champion for obvious reasons. So I do like small EDCs, and this kind of fits that bill. And I do like how this kind of blurs the lines between the custom world and the production world, you know, and even, or the mid. And I do like how this kind of blurs the lines between the mid-tech and the custom world. So really kind of this puts this knife in a really unique spot. So I think this is worth a look, guys. Now, another thing that I want to mention before we go, and I ask you guys again to subscribe and like the channel and all that nonsense, is that you guys really need to keep your eye on Avian Knives. As a matter of fact, if you guys haven't gotten a chance to, please go check out my podcast. On this particular episode, we talked to Rit, and we didn't get a chance to meet Seth, but we did get a chance to get together with Rit and discuss the Atlas. And he debuted his new model, the Topaza, I think is how you say it. Sorry if I ruined it, but here's another lesson. Don't make it hard to pronounce these things, or maybe I'm just an idiot. Either way, this is a really other cool concept. And it kind of has the similar design language like the Atlas, but it is all skeletonized, and it is a titanium folder that weighs 1.6 ounces, guys. That is incredibly light. So I am kind of excited to see what they're going to do. So what's cool is the toolless takedown gimmick thing is not really what Avian Knives is all about. And I think that's a lesson for us to take away from this. This is not all where it's at. They've got other ideas and concepts, and I'm sure they're going to be testing different ideas and different technologies to get the knives smaller, lighter, whatever these different little attributes of these niche areas that a lot of us prefer to have. So overall, I think Avian Knives is definitely a company to keep an eye on. And if you guys are interested in the Atlas, I have no doubt in letting you guys know it's going to be a great knife. Go out and buy one. If you like it, this is no question a great knife to own. Very unique, looks great, feels great, has kind of a unique little signature thing to it, and goodness gracious, a hand-ground blade, guys, come on. From a really reputable custom knife maker. So anyways, that'll do it for tonight's long video. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. And again, go check out Avian Knives. Go check out EDC Hour with Dirk and Alex, our podcast. Make sure you subscribe to that, and make sure you subscribe to my channel. And this is the Watch and Cut channel, out.